way, I'm part of her district, and I'm proud to say that. Chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, and that's the 37th, by the way, congressional district. And Karen has been there since, God, has it been that long? Wow, almost a decade, 2013. Talk about time flying. Second woman. And at third, thank you, Ricky. And we always got to do it right. We introduce our esteemed guest, and the third African American to be Speaker of the California Assembly. And on a personal note, Karen and I, at the risk of dating myself, not Karen, we go way back, and it's been a mutual, at least on my part, a mutual admiration for a long time. Karen, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, and absolutely, that's on both parts. You know, Earl, we have been through a lot over these decades, but we have never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
This is just incredible.
Well, Karen, let me ask you this, a couple of things. Let me jump right into it. Now, I know from day one, you have, and you've been doing this all along anyway, you've had your town halls online, very interactive, involving people, engaging people. And Karen, as you know, that's been one of my big gripes about some elected officials. You know, we put them in office, we never hear from you. No, the transparency and accountability seems to be missing. That has not been the case with Karen Bass, and certainly we applaud you for that.
Thank you.
So, Karen, based on what you're doing now with the town halls and also your work with the Congressional Black Caucus, how are you approaching this issue, which the last few days has begun to dominate the headlines, namely a disproportionate death rate from COVID-related illnesses of African Americans? We saw the report about L.A. County, and now we're getting reports from other cities, too. Your take on that, Karen, and what's a proactive plan on the part of the Congressional Black Caucus to deal with that?
Sure. Well, let me start with the proactive plan first. We hope that there is going to be a bill in the next week or so, and that's just going to be a stopgap bill, not a comprehensive one. And so in the stopgap bill, where they're mainly focusing on small businesses, the Congressional Black Caucus is pushing to get language in that requires the Center for Disease Control, number one, to compile racial data, and two, to disseminate it. It's not clear, Earl, whether the Trump administration stopped the CDC from compiling racial information, but one thing we know is that they don't really distribute it. And so we need to have the data in order to address the problem. However, while we're compiling the data, we need to have focused and concentrated testing in our communities, because obviously with the death rate, and the death rate in Los Angeles, even though we're doing much, much better, is still very disproportionate. 9% of the population, 17 to 19% of the deaths. But as awful as that is the death rate. We need to know how many people are getting sick, how many people are hospitalized, how many people are recovering, because you have to know the information in order to target and address the problem. With comprehensive focused testing, we can also then try to isolate those folks that are infected who haven't gotten sick so that they don't continue to spread it. In addition, we're calling for federal funds to community-based organizations, directly to community-based organizations, faith community nonprofits, to do a education campaign in our community. Now, the other thing that the Black Caucus has focused on are those people who are incarcerated, because we know it's us who are incarcerated, and frankly, the jails and the prisons are petri dishes for the expansion of this virus. So we do want people to be released early, but we want them to be tested and make sure that they're okay coming back into our communities, because they're eventually going to come back. And those people that are sick obviously need to have treatment. My concern is that Black people might be showing up to medical facilities and then told to go home and shelter in place. They go home, get really sick, and then by the time they show up to the emergency room, then they need to be, put on a ventilator. I worked at Big County during the AIDS epidemic before we understood what was actually happening and all of that. So this, to me, is very reminiscent of that time.
If you're just joining us on the Hutchinson Report, my special guest is Congresswoman and Chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, Karen Bass. Karen, we are hearing now from Nancy Pelosi and other key Democrats, including yourself, in Congress. We're hearing now there may be, should I say, second or a third stimulus bill. I'm not sure about the numbers on that. Is that in the making now? Is that in the works now in the House? And if so, what are the particulars of that?
Well, so I have no particulars because it is in the conceptual stage. I mean, it's definitely being worked on, but, when you do bills like that, it's all about the negotiation. So the bill actually started last week, but fortunately it was defeated in the Senate because it was basically just going to be a $250 billion giveaway to businesses that would not have impacted our businesses. So there is a bill that's being thought of. And by the way, it's number 4. Now, I believe that what we are going through is so profound that I won't be surprised if there's not a 5th, 6th, and 7th bill. So that's why we have to make sure as a community that we're very clear about the things that we need to see, not just in the immediate, but what will help our community recover in the long term. We have to make sure that we are compiling and advocating. So on behalf of the Congressional Black Caucus, Earl, we did an emergency summit at the beginning of February, having no idea we'd be facing this situation, but we called it an emergency because we wanted to make sure that people understood how significant this election was. Because if we don't get it right in November, we're going to be a mess for the next 2 generations, the way they are appointing judges. And then we have the census. So we were pushing that. We had planned to have a bunch of regional summits going around the country, but obviously we can't do that now. So what we are doing, though, is a series of town halls by category. So on Wednesday, we're having one for faith leaders. We're going to do one with small businesses. These are national town halls that I'm happy to send you the information because any of your listeners can dial in. But I also want to do a town hall with the families of those who have family members incarcerated because we need to understand what's going on in our prisons and jails. We're going to reduce our prison population, all right, but I don't want to reduce our prison population by people dying. And that's what I'm afraid is going to be happening in our prisons and jails.
And by the way, Congresswoman Karen Bass, what you can do is any information, you have my email address, send it to us, and certainly we'll post it on our Facebook pages, and we'll get the word out there.
Okay.
Now, one area I am deeply troubled by, and there's been lately quite a bit written on this, small businesses. What really caught my attention was I got an email from Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo is a major lender, as we well know. As part of the coronavirus stimulus package plan, they make loans to small businesses. They made an announcement saying that we've shut down applications. We've been flooded by it. We've reached our limit. We may open it up again, but they also implied 2 things. That the money was not there for just the sheer volume and weight from small businesses. The other thing, there was a little thing that caught my eye, that the biggest of the big will certainly have priority in terms of our lending. No surprise there. Now, moving forward, Karen, the big thing I'm really concerned about, and I know you're talking to a lot of small businesses in our community, they're hurting.
Right.
They're marginal in many cases. I mean, they don't have a lot of liquid capital to tide them over. I'm wondering now if there's hopefully another stimulus or some kind of aid coming in. Is there any way, or let me put it another way, hopefully the Congressional Black Caucus will make it their priority to say, look, we got it with Boeing, we got it with United Airlines, we got it with Royal Caribbean, we got it with Trump and his bunch, but what about mom and pop business down on the corner in our community, which at the end of the day is really one of the livelihood streams in our community. How are you going to take care of them?
Well, you are absolutely right, and you should know that is up front a major push from the Congressional Black Caucus. That's why we're having a town hall to hear directly from people. We know some of the things that need to be done, but we need to hear more. And then, by the way, I mean, of all banks to say that, Wells Fargo should be the one that's rushing to lend to community.
I thought about that.
And so there is definitely going to be pressure on the banks to deliver. I will tell your listeners that people are having more success at smaller banks and in credit unions than they are with the big banks, but we are not going to let up on the pressure on the big banks. It will be a major part of the next bill, will be focusing on the small businesses. I am very clear. The opening, they can't afford to wait 1 or 2 months
Absolutely.
for this to happen. They will be closed up. And see, that's why we have to look at this. We haven't even recovered from the 2008 recession. I mean, and now here's another one. And so if the government, if everybody was to go back to life as normal in another month or so, a lot of people won't have jobs to go
Right.
back to because the businesses would have gone under.
Yep, yeah.
So it is a big priority. But, Earl, it's got to be and I've been in office now for a while, and I am crystal clear that we can't get things done unless there's the outside pressure, too. What the big guys do is they spend millions of dollars hiring lobbyists. We don't have millions of dollars, but we do have millions of people. And we got to get our folks to understand calling, emailing, reaching out to your elected officials is really critical. Reaching out to, Mitch McConnell, you can't reach him by email, but you can certainly flood his office. We have to have the outside pressure to make sure that we're able to get these things done.
Representative Karen Bass, I know that you are up against it. I know you are a busy, beyond busy person. We're not going to take any more of your time. Karen, a final thought for our listeners and as we wrap up.
Yes, well, we just, we absolutely have to be safe. We have to follow the guidelines. But you know what? While you're at home, because everybody's at home now, please fill out your census form. We can't just think about today. We have to think about the next 10 years. And the census defines the next 10 years. You can fill it out online, over the phone, or request a mail copy of your census. Please fill it out.
Representative Karen Bass, Congresswoman Karen Bass, Chair of the Congressional Black Caucus Karen Bass, and I might add, too, a good friend. Thanks again, Karen. Keep us posted on all the developments.
Absolutely.
Thanks again.
Absolutely, will do.
Thank you, Karen. That was Representative, Congresswoman, and Chair of the Congressional Black Caucus Karen Bass.
The Hutchinson Report.
I'm not sure you'll have 47 Democrats
With Earl Afari Hutchinson.
that will not break ranks and vote to convict Donald Trump.
Angela Hoffman.
Hoffman, you live in the district too.
They need to be transparent. I think you should run.
Pat Hoffman with her USA hat on today. Sure.
Tune into the Hutchinson Report, Saturdays at 9 a.m. right here on KPFK.